welcome to Right On with Tom Fallwell, a bi-weekly podcast focusing on interviews, novels, reviews, and upcoming releases from indie authors. Now, here's Tom.
Hello and welcome back. This is episode 17. This episode we have with us author Erin Michael Hall. We'll be talking about some new books she has out. But first, here's a word from one of our great sponsors. C.G. Blade's pseudoverse novels are a sarcastic look into mankind's race to develop the first conscious artificial intelligence and achieve singularity. The problem is that most of the runners in this race are sadistic, hell-bent on destruction of DNA as we know it, and have a fondness for those missing a Y chromosome. Why, you ask? From cobalt to crimson to emerald, this is one wild, mysterious roller coaster ride as a hidden puppet master is slowly but surely gaining ground on humankind. C.G.'s newest novel, Onyx, goes back 26 years before Cobalt and explains the beginning of it all. Will humanity finally become steady? Tropa is all around us now as heliotrope starts to take shape. We hope you enjoy this little slice of science fiction heaven which fuses historical science fiction, satire, horror, and plenty of hidden Easter eggs along the way. Join us in liberating the pseudos from Pseudosynth Press Publishing. C.G. Blade's pseudoverse novels are a sarcastic look into mankind's race to develop the first conscious artificial intelligence and achieve singularity. The problem is that most of the runners in this race are sadistic, hell-bent on destruction of DNA as we know it, and have a fondness for those missing a Y chromosome. Why, you ask? From cobalt to crimson to emerald, this is one wild, mysterious roller coaster ride as a hidden puppet master is slowly but surely gaining ground on humankind. C.G.'s newest novel, Onyx, goes back 26 years before Cobalt and explains the beginning of it all. Will humanity finally become steady? Tropa is all around us now as heliotrope starts to take shape. We hope you enjoy this little slice of science fiction heaven which fuses historical science fiction, satire, horror, and plenty of hidden Easter eggs along the way. Join us in liberating the pseudos from Pseudosynth Press Publishing. I have back with me today Erin Michael Hall, and she has some new books out under a pseudonym, Newland Moon, that are science fantasy romance, and I think you might want to hear about these. So please welcome Erin Michael Hall back to the show.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me again.
You're welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about these new books, Rites of Erdrun and Orbs of Trinity.
Yes. Well, Rites of Erdrun, it released in February of this year. And I just released the second book in the duology, Orbs of Trinity. And so that completes this little series, this duology. And whereas Rites of Erdrun was more focused on the romance side of the science fantasy to build the story, Orbs of Trinity is more focused on the battle that takes place and strategizing for it to actually end the series. And so it's very exciting, and it's been getting some really great reviews, and actually just won a couple of awards also. So that's exciting.
That's very cool. I actually have almost finished Rites of Erdrun.
Oh, nice.
Very good. I'm not much of a romance reader, but you're doing a good job, and I'm looking forward to the action in Orbs of Trinity. So, what made you want to do a science fantasy romance? Because you normally, under Erin Michael Hall, you write fantasy.
Right, which is why I chose another pseudonym, because I wanted to separate my epic fantasy from my science fantasy, because they are completely different. And my epics are epic in scale, and the science fantasy or shorter reads, it's still a great compelling story, but a lot shorter. And I don't know, I've always preferred science fiction over fantasy. I love both genres, but science fiction is definitely more highly rated for me. And I never thought I could write science fiction because I'm extremely detail oriented and I would want to get everything just right. So I'm thinking years and years of research just to write a chapter is what it always seemed like it would, be to me. But mixing the fantasy and the sci-fi aspects works a lot better for me because I can have those fantastical, mystical elements as well as the futuristic technology in a new universe. And it's really not that different from writing epic fantasy, except for the technological and futuristic aspects, because I'm still creating whole new worlds and species and languages, and it just flowed naturally to me. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, finish.
Oh, no, well, there's always, in any of my books, there's this little romance element anyway. So, that was natural as well. And blending all three of those genres together, it's not what I set out to do, but it's certainly what happened. And I think the outcome is great. And thus far, the readers think the same.
You said you like science fiction actually more. How would you define science fiction? I know I've heard people say it has to have real science in it, but it's science fiction. So to me, there's got to be some reality to it a little bit, but if it's fiction, why does it have to be real science? What do you think?
Just like with anything else, I think there are degrees, gradations, if you will, of these different aspects. And yes, if you're talking about science, you need to have some basis of how science actually works, or it's just not going to flow well with the readers. Now, I don't write and would never try to write hard sci-fi, although it's more than what they would consider space opera too. So you definitely have to have, if you're talking about these, futuristic elements with these nacelles and these, tetrahedral engines or, something like that, wormholes or how space works, bending space, time, you need to at least learn about this so you could convey that to the reader. Mm-hmm. I know I had to spend a lot of time researching aspects that I knew about, but I couldn't explain them enough in the novel without being able to break them down into an easily understandable way, and so they would flow with the dialogue and not stick out, like something as simple as inverse square law and things when you're talking about physics. I don't want to reach above the reader's heads. I want to put that in the narrative and let it flow. And I think that anybody who writes science fiction has got to do some homework and try to make it work, because I know I've read some books and I'm not a huge science person, and the things just stuck out like a sore thumb, and it just made me stop. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Well, how does that work? Futuristic, sure, but believable. Yes, please.
Well, I kind of thought I had a science background, but I got to say you're far above me in that because your science fiction aspects are really cool. I remember reading something like Dune, and
mm-hmm.
I don't see any real science in Dune. You're talking about glow globes and traveling without moving and stuff like that. So, it was all way above my head, but I enjoyed it a whole lot. And it's kind of the same. You said something as simple as inverse square law, which is so far over my head, I have no idea what we're talking about. It sounds cool. So I think you have a great imagination and concept of science enough that I think you make a very good science fiction writer.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm done with the science fiction now.
No, okay. Well, why don't you give us a little synopsis of Rites of Herodron, as well as of the whole series, actually.
Well, Rights of Erdogan, it centers around a prince, a bastard prince named Zran Ulerin, and he is the only son of a dishonored queen. And there are some things that happened in their past that he's not even aware of right now. They've been manipulated by these entities called Shadow Whisperers, which is really the sorcery of Auric. But there's been this interplanetary betrayal with some new incomers that are trying to take over the system. And it's kind of hard to break it down and not give away important aspects.
Yes.
But his planet, Triaxion, was part of this triax, this unified triax planet. And something occurred that caused the destruction of one planet, Orin, and the betrayal of their other sister planet. And so in Rights of Erdogan, they're trying to figure out what happened, because Zran is undergoing this phenomenal change. And if he doesn't learn some of these things from the past that have been hidden from them, he's going to succumb. And he's, that their whole planet is going to be destroyed eventually. And
Okay.
so that's what Rights of Erdogan kind of sets up. And it ends in a very good way, but it also leads into the next book where this, massive war is going to have to take place. It's inevitable. And so they're strategizing with other solar systems and another galaxy, and this group of people called the Cunitwanians, whom I absolutely love. And they're a very interesting species. And I mean, they're like a panther hybrid, 7 foot 2 inches tall, and awesome warriors. They live hundreds of years, and it's a remarkable buildup of the things that happen, and the people, and the characterization is very important. And there are a lot of really intriguing twists and turns and that happen that people are always surprised, and they send me emails and whatnot about what in the heck, where did that come from? And not in a bad way, but they loved it because I like to keep people on their toes.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the thing that I like the most about Rights of Erdogan. I mean, like I said, I'm not much in reading romance, but that don't mean I don't like romance. But the thing I liked the most about was the political intrigue of how the politics was working. I thought that was done very sneakily and very well. I really enjoyed how that was playing out.
Thank you.
So you're finishing up with Orbs of Trinity. You're not planning on writing another one? Are you still going to be writing science fantasy in the future?
If something comes to me, I'll always write it. But as far as this duology, it's complete. I've told the story that I wanted to tell. I've been asked about developing something about the Cunitwanians because people really love Lizaean and his people. And that could be something interesting that could come up later, but it wouldn't include Zran so much as it would just focusing on Cunitwan and those people there in the separate galaxy, in the Adamax galaxy.
So how did this whole idea of Rights of Erdogan come about? I mean, was it just you just sit down and thought it up? I mean, was there anything that inspired it or made you think of it?
Well, it was inspired because I was helping. Like I said, I never wanted to write anything sci-fi at all, but another author reached out for help on something that they were writing that was a little bit science-based. It was more science fantasy, even though they billed it as sci-fi. And in reading and trying to help develop that, and I was like, wait a minute, no, you can't do, this and say, okay, we have to have some sci-fi aspects. And I started doing a little research, and I started, doing some samples. And from actually helping them develop that plot and create that world, I was like, wait, maybe I can write sci-fi. Maybe I've just been limiting myself saying that I can't do it, but if I can help somebody else do it, surely I can do it myself. And so that's where Rights of Erdogan actually came from, in Orbs of Trinity.
Okay, well, you've done a really great job from
Well,
what I've
thank
read
you.
so far. I still got more to read, but I also understand you're doing some voice acting.
Oh, yes. I used to do quite a bit of it years and years and years ago. And I've recently been able to get back into that a lot. I've always done, student films and different things, but I've been honored to voice several parts in a new animated feature that's coming up. And of course, I do trailers and different things for authors and my own things. And so it's just, yes, I'm very excited and I can't wait. I'm working on that now. And that's probably why I sound a little hoarse, because I've been constant. I'm doing all these different voices, and, from a little kid's voice up to, a gentleman's voice. So it's a range that I haven't worked in a while, but it's sounding great. And I'm so pleased and honored to be included.
What kind of software do you use you've got to be using different kinds of filters and stuff to get these different voices?
I do them myself. I do my own voices.
Really?
Yeah, I send the files off, and then they take care of them in their studio. They do the filtering, and if they want to alter them at all. But I just do me, and I hit the range that I need to hit. Some days I can do the child's voice. Some days I can do the men's voice. It just depends.
Well, I've actually heard some of your work, and I was very impressed, especially with the ability to do accents. You reminded me of James Doohan, who played Scotty in Star Trek.
Oh my God, I love him.
He was
amazing.
I seen him live once, and he did so many different accents. It was hilarious. And you do very good with that. I really enjoy it. So,
thank you.
What are your plans for the future?
Well, right now, my first novel that I published, The Rise of Nozel. It's an epic fantasy with a grimdark edge. It recently won a Reader's Favorite Award this year. And that made me go back to look over it and read some of it. And in doing so, I decided to rewrite it. It needed to be rewritten because my writing has grown so much over the years. And the novel is such a good one. And it's not just because I wrote it, it's the story is very compelling. And it needs to be written in a better way. And so that's what I'm working on now. And after I'm done with that, I will look at Seed of Scorn and Piercing the Darkness. Now, I have my other 3 novels already complete. They've been complete for a while that follow the first trilogy. And if I can get finished, I will go ahead and rework those and start those releasing. So right now I'm working on The Rise of Nozel rewrite, and I've already eliminated 30,000 words, and I just can't believe that. But it's just the rewriting process, because I'm not editing. I'm just completely rewriting what's already there. And that just lets you know I'm only half done, and I've eliminated 30,000 words. So, and not changed the story. I've enhanced it. So, and also, as you know, I've been working on an epic, Corinta Nayusi, and that was supposed to be ready for release by February, but we'll see how that goes, Mr. Fallwell.
Okay. So you're extending the Rise of Nozel series. That's going to end up being 6 books in that series. Is that correct?
Actually, it's going to be 7. There are 6 books that are already written, but only 3 of them are published.
Okay.
But I've outlined and have been working on a prequel for that called Sons of Manafield. So we'll see. That's something else that people were asking me about. Well, how did this all begin? And so it would have to begin before the main characters were even born. So that's what I've outlined. And if I can ever get finished, I'll work on that.
I don't think writers ever get finished.
Well, it's just, this is it. Oh, this is it. This is the final thing. This is the first real rewrite, and then I'm done. I'm done.
Okay. So why don't some of our readers may be wondering, some of our listeners may be wondering, what is grimdark? You want to give us your description of that?
No, because I don't write grimdark. Now, I belong to 2 grimdark groups, okay? And the people in the group, that's something that it differs depending on who you ask. I don't write pure grimdark anything. My novels just have this grimdark edge because of some of the characterization and some of the things that happen. It's not just bad things happening to good people. It's the character concepts that go along with it, and the settings and different things like that. So my fantasy it's epic fantasy by definition, stylistically, classically, but it has that edge that is something that people don't normally find in their normal epic fantasy. So I have to let people know, there's this grimdark edge that goes along with it. So be prepared for that. It's not prevalent, but it's there.
Yeah. I also read The Rise of Hazel, and I know what you're talking about. So, and I still got to continue those, but my reading list is so long.
Mine too.
You was talking earlier about your writing has grown or developed more. Kind of tell us a little about that, because I think that's true of any author. When we start out, we start realizing we have to change things. And eventually we kind of develop, at least I feel that an author finally develops their own style. And is that what you feel has happened with you?
Well, I've always had my own style. I was a different author. I was an accidental author is what I call it, because I never wanted to publish anything. I just love to write, and I've always written, and I would not have published my first book if so many people hadn't prodded me to do that. So when I was writing and beginning to write, as getting it ready for publishing, I started looking at what I needed to do differently. But the more I kept writing for an audience and not just for myself, my writing itself started to improve. And the way I could express myself and what was important to express, and people are always talking about, showing versus telling and, different things like that. And I didn't really pay that close attention to that when I'm just writing for me. If I'm just writing to get out everything that's inside of me, and I'm building this wonderful world and these characters and whatnot. But when you're writing for an audience, you have to step back and look at what you're putting out there compared to what you should be putting out there. And so anybody who's continuing to write, if you're not growing, if you can't, I had a gentleman say something like, yes, well, we needed the rewrite or whatnot. I'm like, well, of course it has. Of course it does, because I've grown since then. I've continued to write. And anything that you're doing, any trade that you're in, if you don't improve over the years, you need to look at what you're doing, because you should be getting better at something that you're constantly doing, not worse. And anyone should go back and look at that first novel that they wrote. And, you may not do a face palm, but you can look at it and see where you could have made it better, where something could have been structurally better, where you could have worded this better, or whatever. But you should be able to identify that, because you're growing.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very true. And it's true in any profession, any kind of thing that you may be doing, any hobby or profession that you may be doing.
That's right.
I don't believe there's any such thing as an expert myself.
No, because you can always learn more, and you should.
Well, another thing I was noticing, especially on Orbs of Trinity, has a beautiful cover. And you do your own covers, is that correct?
Well, sometimes. This one, no. I have a fabulous cover designer, Julie Nichols, and she put the cover together for me, and it's one of my favorites. Now, I normally like to use my own art that I've commissioned, but for Rights of Air Drawing, it was a little different, and I had a model that I absolutely have loved for years and years and years. And I said, well, there's my Zoran, just like the gentleman who I wanted to do the audio book, Victor Bavine. I fell in love with his voice, and he did the audio book. But no, Julie Nichols did the cover for Orbs of Trinity, and I absolutely love it. It's fabulous.
Yeah, now you did commission the character art, though, correct?
Not for Rights of Air Drawing, but for Orbs of Trinity, yes.
Orbs of Trinity is the one I'm talking about. So.
Okay. Oh, yes, absolutely. Now, Orbs of Trinity, yes, I designed that one myself. I wanted to keep it simple. Julie Nichols still did the font for the title. But yes, my wonderful, wonderful illustrator, artist, friend, Uped, did the cover art, and that is Lizayan, one of my CUNY Twanian warriors, who is on the cover, and he's gorgeous. Oh, I love him.
So in going back kind of to the voice acting, have you done any actual acting or just voice?
Oh, yes. I've done quite a bit of acting years ago.
Okay.
On stage, doing films and whatnot.
So you're not afraid of getting up in front of people?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you are? Then how do you do it?
It is, it's a process. I call it flipping the switch, because I'm actually extremely shy, and people who know me know that. But if I see you like at a convention or like during this interview or anything, you would never think that, because I know that, okay, I'm going out with people. That means I have to flip the switch and try to come out of this shell. And it's just hard. So to do that, and people don't understand how difficult it is when you are so comfortable with being by yourself and not intermingling. And when you actually have to get out there and talk to people or do something, and I always did things that were group activities, like I was in band and orchestra and different things like that, because it was a group of people that I could kind of hide in. But then even when I was younger, my band director would always single me out to do like solos, and I would just die every time.
Well, I can relate to that, but I think you have your personality is more outgoing than you may even realize, because you definitely know how to talk to people. And I want to, before we go, I always ask this pretty much of every author, and I believe I asked it of you the first time, but it's been a while. So any advice for new and upcoming authors that are trying to get out there and make their mark in this?
The same. I mean, you have to learn your trade. I mean, your craft, your whatever. If you want to do this, anybody can write. If you want to be an exceptional writer, just do everything you can to learn about the process. And when you're doing that, when you have your story that you want to tell, you tell that in a way that feels right to you. There are so many people out there who are so ready to judge you, to be a naysayer, and all this stuff. I have a plethora of people that I just had to push out in a way, because if I kept listening to them and their expert opinion, then I would never have written anything. And it's kind of funny, because when I started checking into these people and what they actually did, what they said was completely contrary to what they produced. So think about what you want and how you want to do it. Learn the best way to do it, and stay true to who you are and what your vision is for your work. and you'll be fine. Surround yourself with the right kind of people. You want people who are going to give you an honest critique in a helpful way. And just be true to the story that you have in your heart, and you'll just love it. Don't hate the process, because I've talked to a lot of authors who love to write, but they hate the community because people can be so incredibly egotistical and nasty. But, you find the right kind of people because they're out there, and have that healthy relationship and keep doing what you love to do.
That's good advice. And I would add to that, if you want to be a writer, write.
That's right.
Write. You can study about it all. I mean, it's good to know all that background information. You need to learn all that. Need to learn proper grammar, all that stuff. But if you really want to be a writer, you got to start writing. So.
Oh, absolutely. While you're doing all this stuff, learning the process, meeting people, you're still writing. Don't ever stop the writing process. Just keep improving upon it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you for being with the show today, Erin, and I'm very glad to have you back on, and I want everybody to know that we will have links to your Rites of Erdron and Orbs of Trinity books on the podcast page, and to be looking for your Amazon page and checking out your books. I have both of them, by the way, everyone, so I recommend you buy them. They're not expensive, and they're great books. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Are you a new indie artist looking for a way to market yourself? Maybe it's time to go indie now. Go Indie Now is an online platform that highlights, fosters, and supports indie artists of all art forms. Our shows on YouTube do everything they can to bring an audience to what you're doing. So head on over to goindienow.com, find our channel on YouTube by searching Go Indie Now, all one word, and remember, it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you there.